Hey guys, welcome to another Adobe InDesign interactive tutorial. Today, I want to show you how to create a digital catalog layout with interactive product buttons. In this lesson, I'll go over how to set up buttons to trigger multi-state objects that will also display products in the catalog from different angles. So let's get started. I want to start by going over the panels we'll be using for this lesson. Object states and buttons and forms, those can be accessed by going to Window, Interactive, Buttons and Forms, as well as Object States. And then just make sure that your Layers panel is also open, just so we can keep files organized as we're working. We're going to start things off by clicking on Object States. We'll need that first to set up the multi-state objects. I'm going to bring in the first set of backpacks for this fictional digital catalog that I'm working on here. And I'm going to hold my shift key and just drag out just a frame like that. Now this is an image that contains 3 backpacks. And what I'll do is I'm going to keep the same image, but I'll maneuver the content within. So I'm going to hold my shift key and just pull this off to the right. And then what I'll do is I'm going to bring the right side of the frame in snug to the backpack there. So there's the first one. I'm going to hold my Option key down and drag out another copy. And for this, I want the second backpack. So the idea here is we're going to set those circle buttons below there to, once we click on them, it'll change the view of the backpack. So essentially it's giving the viewer different views of the product. And so this is helpful in a user experience kind of way. It may entice the viewer to look into purchasing it if they like what they see. So I'm going to make one more copy, Option drag, click the content grabber or the donut, and then I just hold my shift key down and left arrow key to bring over that last one. Great, so now I have the same 3 backpacks, but they're from different angles. It's the same image, but I do want to rename these, okay? So this is where I'm going to go into my Layers panel here. And right now you can see it's just called Adobe Stock, Adobe Stock, Adobe Stock. So I want to click on the one that I have selected there. And this will be backpack _1. Let's move that to the top. Let's click the second one here. This one will be backpack _2. We'll move that just above the last one there. And this is important because when you're setting up the object state or the multi-state object, it'll order in this same way. So let's click on that last one, and this will be called backpack _3. Great, so we have all 3 backpacks there. I'm just gonna select all 3, click on one, hold shift, and then I guess you could just drag to select all 3 as well. And then I'm gonna use my alignment tools here. I'm gonna align the vertical centers, and then I'm going to align the horizontal centers so they're all stacked on one another. I'm gonna bring it into this area here, kind of center it to that area, so it's centered between these objects here. And then if you could see, they're all there, right? If I turn off the layers individually, I'm with them all selected still. Let's go to Object States, and I'm going to create or convert that selection into a multi-state object. So there's state 1, state 2, state 3, okay? And so the idea, as I mentioned before, we'll create these circles down below into buttons to click corresponding views of this product, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to click on the object name, and of course, I always encourage you to rename that. So this one will be called Backpack Set 1, okay? Very important because when we're setting up the buttons, the object name will come into play. So make sure that you just don't call it Backpack Set, because we're gonna name the second set 2, and then set 3. You'll see how this will all fall into place as we're working here. So I just want to actually make this a little bit bigger, okay? And then maneuver it with your left, down arrow keys, kind of put it in an area where you think makes sense. So I think that looks good. Now I can bring in the second set here. Same idea. I'm gonna just drag it onto my page and then hold your shift key and drag out just a rough frame. See, if you just click, it's gonna bring it in at a large scale, and then you're kind of stuck resizing it or scaling it to the size you want. So the first thing I want to do is just scale it to the size that I want. And it's important, again, to make it similar in size to your first set, right? You don't want this one to be a lot bigger or a lot smaller. The idea is to keep it consistent, okay? So I'm just gonna bring in those handles a bit. Not that that matters. I'm gonna hold my Option key, Alt on Windows, Content Grabber, hold your Shift key and use your left arrow to bring in the other backpack. I'm gonna Option and drag one last copy. And then again, I'm just holding my Shift key and left arrow. Now this one has some handles you see is being cut off. So we'll have to maneuver that. I'm gonna bring it to the right a bit. And then I'm just gonna extend the handle down below just to get those handles. By the way, these are all JPEGs. I'm putting them on a white canvas, so it doesn't matter. But if you were putting this on another background, obviously you would have to go in and remove the white background from these images. So I'm just gonna select all three again. Oh, before I do that, of course, we have to go to our layers panel, and the same thing that we did for the first. This will be called Backpack 1. Let's click on this second one. And this is Backpack 2. Perfect. And then the last one. Let's order these the way we want. Put that one there. Let's drag that one to the very bottom. And you guessed it, the last one is Backpack 3. Perfect. I'm gonna select all three, align the horizontal and vertical centers. With my selection tool, drag it to the middle area here. And then of course, you can resize them a bit here. And then just kind of nudge them to where you want. The good thing about this is you can always revisit and make it a little bit bigger after the fact. You're not tied to this, or you're not stuck to it, I should say. Great, so I still have them selected. Now let's make that or convert that into a multi-state object as well. Object states, down below here, convert selection to multi-state object. Oops. I'm gonna click that, so there you go. This is now a multi-state object. You could see up here, object name, it says multi-state 2. Let's call this Backpack Set 2. Perfect. So if I go back to my layers here, you can see now I have Backpack Set 1, Backpack Set 2. That's exactly what you want. I'm gonna go ahead and add the third set, and then we'll move on to adding buttons to these multi-states. Now that our multi-state objects are set up, it's time to add the buttons. I'm gonna zoom in on the first set here, and you can see I have 3 circles below the product. I'm gonna click on the first one, and in the Buttons and Forms panel, I'm gonna convert that object into a button. This will be called Backpack Button 1A. The action will be Go to State. The object, we'll leave that to Backpack Set 1. You could see how that comes in handy just by renaming it. And the state is State 1, so we'll leave it at that. I'm gonna go ahead and add a rollover effect on this as well. So I'm gonna click on Rollover, double click. Let's go to our swatches panel, and let's just give it maybe, let's give it a darker gray color there, and let's make it 100%. So when I hover over it, I've made it this Pantone gray color. Just make sure that once you've done that, to click normal again. So you can see I have a rollover and normal. Let's click on the second one and do the same thing. That'll be a button. This will be called Backpack button 1B. Okay, and the action is go to state. Backpack set 1 is still the object, only this time the state is 2. Let's click on rollover, double click, go to your swatches panel. I'm going to make it that same Pantone color, and then I'm going to click back to normal. Oops, let's go there. I got to make that 100%. Perfect. So now that I'm using swatches, I'm also going to tear that off, and let's bring that into this window as well, just so we can toggle between the tabs. Again, you're limiting the time you're going to the dock and then here just by collecting them all together. So let's go back to buttons and forms and click normal. I'm going to click on that third one. This will be a button, will be called backpack button 1C, and the action is go to state. The object is set 1. The state is state 3. Rollover effect, double click, swatches. I'm going to click on the same gray. I got to make that 100% in the tint. And then let's go back to buttons and forms and click normal. So now all 3 of these have been set up. Let's go ahead and test it. Again, always test your work. I'm going to click on the preview spread EPub window here. That'll take a second to load. And then we could test the 3. We set up the structure for the first set. Let's test that out and see how it looks. So here it is. I'm going to click on the second one and the third, and you can see the hover states or the hover appearances that we set up also works. So that's great. We've set up the first one. Let's go ahead and do the second. And we're repeating the same process. So I'm going to click on that first circle, click on button. This will be called backpack button 1 or 2A. Okay. Go to state is the action. Backpack set 1 is now backpack set 2. So we're on the second set. For the object, click backpack set 2. You can see just keeping organized like that really saves you time. So having that set up or still not named and it says multi-state, that could add confusion and really throw things off. So the state here is state 1. Perfect. I'm going to add a rollover state and double click. Remember, always double click into your rollover appearance and then do the change. Okay, so that's 100. And then I'm going to go back to buttons and forms and click normal. Let's go to the second one, button, backpack button 2B. You can see how, keeping organized here, I can't stress that enough. It will really help you as you're setting things up and as you're working. Okay, so let's keep going here. Action is go to state. The state object is set 2. The state is state 2. The rollover, double click, go to swatches, and then click the swatch you want. Okay. And then go back to buttons and forms and click normal. Reason we click normal is if you don't, then the appearance will start at the rollover. Okay. So always click rollover, click normal once you've set that rollover state. Let's click the third one. We're moving along here. The type is a button. So this is backpack button 2C. And the state is go to state. I should say the action is go to state. The object is set 2. And the state is state 3. I'm going to click rollover, double click, go to swatches, click on the gray that I've selected, 100%, and back to buttons and forms, click normal. Perfect. So these ones have been set as well. I'm going to finish this last set off, and then we're going to test it out and see how everything looks. I've set up all the buttons to the multi-state objects. Let's go ahead and test it out. It's important to test the work to see if everything lines up the way you've set it up. If not, you can always go back, revisit, make any changes. But you'll see as I work my way through the buttons, they should align with all the settings that we've made. So as you can see, the first set, the rollover works fine. 2, 3. Let's go to the second set. The rollover works fine. 2, 3. And the last one, the rollovers also work. 2, 3. Perfect. We're going to move on now, and I'm going to show you how to use show, hide buttons and forms to add a separate open and close button to these products. For this next step, you'll notice I have a details button above each product. And the idea here is I want to click on the details button, open up a separate window that has information and other features about the product. We'll add a close button to close the window and take you back to the product where you can keep toggling through or move on. So we'll set that up using show, hide buttons and forms for each backpack set. On the right hand side here, I have those details. They're in a text frame with a white fill and a inset. So if you're wondering how to set an inset, I'll show you real quick. I'm going to hold my Option or Alt on Windows and double click to bring up the text frame options. And I'm going to check my preview button there, and you can see I have a text inset of 13, 14. So I'll leave it at 14 because that's what the others are set to. And I'm going to click OK. And then you can see I have an X for close, and that's contained or grouped with a circle or an ellipse. Okay, so I'm going to bring that first set over to, I'm not going to put it above yet, because once we click the details button, the idea is to have it covered like this. It'll bring up this window, and then we'll click this to close it, and it'll come back, and you can view that again. Okay, so I'm going to put it down here for now, just so I can add the buttons, and then at the end we'll move it on top. You'll see what I mean in just a sec. So I'm going to click on this first details button, and I'm going to go ahead and turn that into a button, and this will be called Details Button 1. Okay, now we're not going to add an action just yet because I have to go to this details text frame, and we're going to turn that into a button. It's not going to have an action, but it will be a button that we can use to trigger it using show, hide buttons and forms. You'll see what I mean in just a moment. So I'm going to click that, and that will be a button as well. And this is called Mountain Crew Info. Okay. I'm going to click the close button, and that will be a button as well. And this will be called Close Button 1. I'm going to go back to the Details button. You can see it's called Details Button 1. The action will be Show, Hide Buttons and Forms. Now anything with an X here in the visibility area or the section here, anything with an X is going to be ignored completely. But we have to add a hide visibility state to a couple. So the close button 1, first off, we want that to be visible. And the Mountain Crew info, we also want that to be visible when we click the Details Button 1. However, we do want to hide the Details Button 1. So I'm going to click the Details Button 1, and then this second window will open. I'm going to click on this Close button, and we have to add an action here also for Show, Hide Buttons and Forms. So I'm going to click on that and select Show, Hide Buttons and Forms for the action. And in this case, we want to hide details, or sorry, Show Details Button 1. We want to hide Close Button 1, and we also want to hide Mountain Crew Info. I'm going to move that above. Actually, before I do that, let's test it out and see if it works, okay? So I'm going to click on the EPub preview window. And this is a good chance for you to just test out the work, because you may have to go back and make a small adjustment. It's easy to oversee things as you're working, especially when you're making so many adjustments on the go. So let's click, oh, I'm sorry, I have to do one other thing. This is important too, because you could see as I loaded that up, it was visible already. So I don't want that to be visible until I trigger the details button. So I'm going to click on Mountain Crew Info button. Okay. And see down below here, hidden until triggered. So essentially I don't want to see that until I click the details button. Same goes with the close button. Click that and hide hidden until it's triggered. Now let's go ahead and play that and see how it looks and if it works. So you can see it's not on the page now. If I click details, there it is, and I can close it and it'll come back to this state here. So now it'll make more sense if I bring it over the area here. Okay. And let's play it now. You see, I can click the details button. It'll bring up the details or information window that we set up. I'm going to click the close button and it'll bring me back to this view where I can keep looking at the product. Let's move on and do the same thing to the second set of backpacks. So again, I always encourage to bring over the text and put it at the bottom so you're not being confused, because if you bring it over the top, you won't be able to see what you're doing. You can always test things as you're working. All right, so same idea. I'm going to click the details button, and this will be a button that'll be called Details Button 2. I'm going to add an action. Actually, before we add the action, let's add this, convert this to a button as well. And this will be called Northern Trek Info. Okay. Again, important to rename. Let's click on the close button. And this will be button. And this will be close button 2. The action. We'll do the action in a sec. We do want to hide hidden until triggered. Click on Northern Trek Info, hidden until triggered. Perfect. I'm going to click on details again. Now we can add a show hide buttons and forms action. Anything with an X is ignored, but we do want to show two of the things. So obviously we want to show close button 2, and we want to show Northern Trek Info. So we want those two things to be visible. Perfect. Let's click on the close button. Okay. And here, show hide buttons and forms. Perfect. And we want to hide close button 2 and hide Northern Trek. Now again, I'm just going to select this and bring it over. And we want to center it to the product stuff. And you also want to make sure that both of these things, so the information window and the close button, are at the very top, so they cover the rest of the stuff here, because we can't hide that because they're not buttons. Those are multi-state objects. So the way you get around that is by putting it above the other objects in the layers panel. Okay, so that's important to note as well. Perfect. So let's go ahead and test out the second set that we just created using show hide buttons and forms. So I'm going to click on the second details. You can see the second window comes up. I'm going to click on the close button, and then I can keep looking through the product here. I'm going to go ahead, finish the last one. I'm going to show you how to export this for EPub fixed layout, and then we'll look at it in that platform. Okay, so I went ahead and finished the rest of the buttons. I added show hide buttons and forms actions to them. I also grouped them in my layers panel. You can see I have set 1, set 2, set 3, and that just makes things easier when you're trying to locate buttons or other assets within these groups. Let me show you now how to export this for EPub fixed layout, and we'll view it in that platform. Upper right hand corner, click the share button, and then select Export. Choose where you want to save this, and you'll see it'll default to Adobe PDF Print. By the way, I should mention, if you choose interactive PDF, this will not work at all. So I'm going to select EPub Fixed Layout, and I'm going to open this in Apple Books. So I'm going to save, and then you can select the range. Now I only have one page, all pages is fine. Don't worry so much about the rest of the settings. I'm going to click OK. That will render and then open in Apple Books, and then we'll take a look and see how that views in that platform. Okay, I have the project open in Apple Books. Let's test out the rollover states. Those work. The buttons work, and you can see that it toggles to each multi-state. Let's click on the Details button. There's the first window. I'll close it. It'll take me back to this. Details 2, close, Details 3, and then let's close that. I hope you enjoyed this lesson on how to create a digital catalog layout with interactive buttons. If so, go ahead and give it a thumbs up as it helps this channel grow. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel in order to stay up to date with all the latest tutorial content and get notified when new videos are released. Until then, take care and we'll see you in the next video.